Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of Women and the Relationship with Money. Today we have with us Rupa Mittal. Rupa and I go back to our MDI days. We are batchmates from college.
Good. Yeah, so I don't think it was anything to do with her working per se, because before I started going to school, my mother was not working, right? But I think my father in general, because he had two daughters, right? So, and in general, the respect for women. So I think it just came, like you mentioned, maybe, the family values that kind of carried on. And secondly, I think my mother also made sure that even while she was not working, she used to hold some money, for household, for household expenditure, which she used to control completely. So there was a lot of independence there, and she made sure that even if she's not working, she is financially independent that way. She also got, for example, she had got some scholarship money, which was completely her own, and she would decide that, this is how I'm going to spend it, be it on family or be it on herself. So I think it was a two-way street, to be honest. Like my father also respecting, the opinion of women, and having two daughters, and my mother also making sure that she has her independence even if she doesn't work.
So you mentioned that your parents lived apart for 14 years, right?
Yeah.
So did you also, while growing up, did you see a time when your family was facing financial challenges which kind of compelled them to stay apart? Like, what was the reason for 14 years of two different households?
Yeah. So it was more for our education actually, because Gorakhpur being in eastern UP, and the kind of education that was available in Nainital, we had convent schools, and really well-renowned schools in Nainital. So I think initially they had not really thought that they'll have to stay apart for so long. It started off as a more short-term thing, that while we go to those convent schools, my father will travel, and they'll manage somehow. But eventually it so happened that he was not able to come back, and then when I went to Delhi for my further studies, I went to the hostel, then my mother shifted. Right, so I don't think they thought for such long term. It was a short term decision that went on for a very, very long time. But I think yes, it did have a lot of impact on our financial state. Right, because there were two separate households, and all your expenses are double basically, right? Which did make it very difficult for us. Then the travel that used to happen, and it was a very tough time for my family financially. Honestly, more than me, my sister remembers it better, because I was very young at that point of time. But yeah, I mean, I do remember a lot of prioritization exercises happening, right? That if we were to take a holiday, then probably we'll cut down on this. So that I definitely remember because of the situation.
So, the financial constraints that you're talking about as a family managing two households, etc.
Yeah.
Do you think that it has shaped anything in the way you take some of your money decisions?
Yeah. No, it certainly has, I think. I think one thing definitely is that I feel very uncomfortable if there is no structure or plan to financial planning, and that was the case probably when we just got married, and the first 2-3 years it was like that. So what we used to do was that, initially actually before getting married, I overcompensated on the other side, so I just used to spend my salary on whatever I liked, right? And because I think it was kind of an overcompensation for not having, that financial freedom while I was growing up. But obviously once you get married, there is more responsibility, also life stage, you mature, right? So I realized that no, obviously, it's not the right thing to do. And then we started, putting some money apart for investing, and, started putting some structure to it. And then, we used to invest through a mutual fund platform. But again, after 2-3 years, it started making me feel very uncomfortable, because I thought that one, we are not experts at this, right? So while we would do some research and, then accordingly decide on which funds do we invest behind, etc. But I always felt that we're lacking enough knowledge, right, to do that. And secondly, I also felt that we didn't also have a lot of time. So while we were doing whatever we could, but there was still, for example, so much money left in our accounts, which I used to feel is like lying idle. So that used to make me very uncomfortable. So I think that what happened in my childhood shaped me in a way that I always wanted my money to work hard. Like I didn't want it just lying around. And put some structure to it, put some planning behind it. So I think that's what we did. And then after those 2-3 years, then is when me and my husband, we discussed, and then we came to you.
Yeah.
Because we thought that we need that expert advice, right? And then of course we got into this entire like goal-based investing and planning and all of that.
Right.
I think again, it was just making sure that with every phase, with every life stage, it should not be that you're careless about money, and you're just being lazy and not doing anything about it. And I think also taking a cue from my mother in terms of taking action. So I think those are some of the things that have shaped my thinking about financial planning.
Like funnily, there's so much of contradiction in what you're saying, right? You're like spending everything before marriage, and then like being so much more, what do I say, cautious after marriage in terms of your money.
Yeah.
So I just want to know that when you were spending all your money, like before marriage, like what was it that your parents were telling you? Like having lived the life they had lived to give you the education, make you, make you settled, so to say, give you that ability to make your own money. Were they like comfortable with you indulging at their expense? Or were they, or did they align with this thought that okay, we have not been able to give everything that you wanted, and therefore do ji le apni zindagi? Like what was it that what were they telling you then?
Yeah, so I think it was the latter, to be honest, because if they would have told me, probably even if I would not have like invested the way I'm doing it right now, probably some part of it I would have started investing. But I think it was more about just, they also felt that, I think the other thing that had changed was that by that time, my parents were also pretty comfortable. They were financially a lot more stable. They had a lot more disposable income. They were staying at one place. My father was doing very well in his career. And there was no dependency or responsibility on me per se. And I did not have to support them. I did not have a student loan, for example, right? And I think the other thing also in these things plays a role is that I'm the younger sibling. So my sister, while she had gone through it, I think she got a lot more, like practical advice, I would say, because she had seen that whole phase, and while she was growing up, they were still, getting there. By the time I graduated from MBA, they were already pretty comfortable, right? So I think they also in a way said that it's okay, and when the responsibility and when the dependency comes, we will see. They never encouraged me, but they also never discouraged me. So I think it was those 4-5 years of just having fun and taking like international trips and like buying whatever I want, which when I look back, I feel mistake, yes, I should have taken some money and invested it, because the earlier you invest, the better it is. So should have had that maturity, but I don't regret it also so much, because I feel that obviously those years were never going to come back.
Yeah. So now that you're married, so how does it work between you and Ritesh? Like drawing parallels again from your parents, and maybe Ritesh also drawing parallels from his family. What kind of roles do each of you play when it comes to thinking about your family goals or family finances?
No, I think it's very similar, to be honest, because I think that really gets ingrained in you, right? The way you've seen your parents manage. So I think both of us, again, very strong roles we play. My role is again more driving action, pushing him to take action. So, and doing a lot of research. So obviously the way my mother used to do it was like talk to a lot of people. I do a lot of research online. And I am generally the initiator of a change. So for example, in December I had some free time, right? So I did a lot of research on whether the credit card strategy that we have is right or not. Right, and I looked at a lot of videos, and I read a lot of articles, and then I finally told Ritesh that I think we need to start looking at a vertical credit card strategy, that for household expenditures we should have one card, and for other expenditures we should have another card. And then he also kind of agreed, and then we kind of took that. So I think that is my role, to initiate new things, make sure that action is being taken. Whereas I think he is more he goes really deep into the products. And he will see whether what should be the mix of, let's say, debt and equity. Like when I was investing before we came to you, right, and this, I had invested in all kinds of funds, right, like my portfolio was really big and messy. So he was the one who told me that you really need to start consolidating, and this is how you should think about it. So I think from a technical point of view, he plays more of that role, and I play a role of doing the research, initiating new things, all of those things.
So in those early years when you I'm assuming that you started mutual funds after you got married, because you were spending everything before that. So how did you square down on a particular platform? Were you aware of mutual funds, or was it something that people around you were doing, therefore you did it? Because I remember back in as early as 2014-15, a lot of people of my age and my friends, colleagues, etc. were not investing in mutual funds at all, right? We were faintly aware, but nobody was really taking that action, nobody was researching. And I think in the last 8-9 years, massive changes happened in this space. So when you got married to Ritesh, how did you make those decisions around कि ठीक है कितना invest करना है, SIP कितनी होनी चाहिए, coming down to a platform? Did you do research? Did you talk to people? How did all that start? I want to understand the start of the journey.
So I think it all started from the fact that we had certain part of our salary which was going on common expenditures, right, like for the household or whatever we were buying for the house and all of that, right? Now what do you do with the rest of your salaries? So again, I also believe in a lot of tracking and reviewing and all of that, right? So I used to track our common expenses every month. Suddenly I got into that zone when I realized that it's not just my money, it is his money as well, right? So we started doing that, and then I started realizing that there is a lot of spare money which we could probably of course, one is that you spend it on yourself, but there is also what we can probably build for our future. So I think I started getting that maturity after I got married and started thinking more long term, right? And then he told me that he invests in mutual funds. So I think he had started that journey much earlier. And he was anyways a lot more conscious, I think, than I am, because he had started saving and investing way before I started doing. So I think I took some inspiration from there probably. And then he told me that this is how I think about it, this is how you should do it. So then gradually I also started using the same platform. I did not at that point of time I feel that I was just starting my journey. So I did not do a lot of research as to which platform, what is right, what is wrong. I took his advice and I started doing it because for me it was just important to get started first, right? So I think that's how we started doing it, and then looking at that, okay, this much amount for every month we'll put in common for our common expenditures, and the rest that is left, this much we'll put in the investment, and then the rest is for us to figure out it's more disposable for us, whether we want to buy something for us or do something else, right? So that's how it started. And initially I think took a lot of advice from what he was doing and just started off.
I really like what you're saying, Rupa, because when I talk about bringing women into the fold of investing, and this whole passion about awareness around personal finances for women, a perception that I get in a lot of cases is that probably people feel that I'm telling them that women should just do everything on their own and be but in your case, what I see is that you are fairly involved, informed, and also taking your own decision. But your the advice is coming from the husband still.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your source of inspiration can be anybody.
Yeah.
And if Ritesh was somebody who was doing it much earlier, was a little more read up, like well read on it,
right,
more comfortable on it,
right,
it's very natural to just fall back on him and like take inspiration, get started.
Yeah.
But a stark difference between your case and a lot of other working couples is that in a lot of other cases what I see is that the wife leaves it to the husband कि ये लो मेरा salary है, tell me कितना SIP करना चाहिए, 1 लाख करना चाहिए, ठीक है, you choose the funds. And then what happens is that's where your awareness breaks.
Correct.
And that's where you know that you're investing, but you don't know where is it going.
Yeah.
And I understand that you said that it was a mess of the portfolio, and but I think it's a learning journey.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Had it not been a mess, you wouldn't have understood what's a mess.
Exactly.
And you always had Ritesh to from what I can sense is the way it might be working at your place is that you took your decisions, you started with those decisions, and maybe once in 6 months you sat down together to review.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he would have said कि अरे यार ये क्या कर रखा है, इतना सारे funds नहीं करते हैं, let's consolidate.
Correct.
And both of you would have that discussion, and then again he would leave it to you to take those decisions.
Right.
That's one way of how a lot of working couples can make it work.
Right.
And that may not be the only way.
Correct.
But I'm really happy to see that it can still be the men in your family who have more time, to think about these things.
Yeah.
It's more natural to them. They have had a lot more conversations in their family about it than the women.
Yeah.
But the women can still be involved and
Correct.
still be aware and still be... So, taking a cue from this, I just want to go a little off tangent from investments and ask you that both of you are fiercely independently working in your own domains, right?
Yeah.
Both of you are batchmates, right?
Yeah.
So you have same profile, same intensity of work, same demands, similar demands.
Correct.
Let's call it like that.
Correct.
When you got married, how did you decide that who contributes to the expenses, who funds what? This is a very tricky conversation that a lot of working people, even non-working people, they don't have it, right?
Correct.
So I just want you to tell us that how did you really make it work? Because investing comes later.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
it's first the basic finances, right? How did this happen? How did he get that oversight on your money and you got oversight on his money? And then you made it work for both of you as a family.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, I think what we did was, and again it started coming when we started seeing that, okay, there are so many common expenses that are happening. I think what we did, and I feel that was a very good decision that we took back then, is that we opened a separate account for common expenses. So what we started doing was that every month we decided that, so initially we just did an exercise, and it was we created a full Excel, and both of us being the kind of people we are, like you said, right? We created a full Excel. We saw, okay, this much salary everybody is getting, this much spare money we have already in our account, we did all that exercise, and we said, okay, the contribution for the common expenses should be so and so, which was very close to 50-50, would go up and down a little bit. But more or less 50-50, right? And then we said that, okay, every month we will contribute this much to the common expenses, right? And if there are certain expenses that have come, for example, like buying a car, right? Then those big expenses we will tackle separately, or if you're traveling internationally, then those we will tackle separately. But at least your day-to-day and, jo pata hi hai, hone hain, for those we said that we will both put money and we will spend from that account. And then if we felt that, okay, maybe sometimes you just use your credit cards, right? You don't think so much.
That was my next question, actually.
Yeah. So we used to do that. Initially we started every month, but as we started maturing, we realized monthly to nahi ho raha hai, so we made it a quarterly exercise. And every quarter we would just tally. If we felt that we've spent more than the decided amount, then we would just take back that much money from the common account. So that was also very clear that for our own personal needs, right, we will not compromise, right, and we will make sure that there is enough going in the common account based on our expenses and all of that. but our disposable income is also which is important. Now on that also I think it was a journey, right? Because initially like I would want to see what he is spending on, you know, and he would want to see what I'm spending on.
Yeah,
But
and have an opinion on that.
Exactly, but eventually you realize it's not
Yeah.
working because both of us have very different styles, right? Like I probably, you know, like when I do my shopping, like I do it in one go, okay, and then I will probably not spend for 6 months. While he is very like deliberate about it, like he will read 1000 articles, even if he has to buy a shoe, that just का कौन सा leather है, and you know, like, so he does a lot of research. So it was not working out that way. So then we decided that okay, whatever is left after,
We'll spend from that.
we will spend from that, and then we will not like meddle in each
Yeah.
other's, you know, like this
Yeah.
thing. So that gives us our enough independence. That gives us, and you know, the other thing which I always feel sometimes happens is that, especially with women, I feel, right, that you are more than, you know, you're not getting involved, and like you said, right,
Yeah.
that husband ko bol diya ye hai, ab tum dekh
Yeah.
lo. I think one, of course, comes from what you've seen in the family. Second, also comes from the burden of making a wrong decision. You know, and because financial decisions are such big decisions, right? Because they impact the entire family. I feel that sometimes women feel that if I make a wrong decision, I will not hear the end of it. Or I will myself feel very guilty that, you know, like I did not probably have enough expertise to take such a decision. I took it and, you know, like it's not ended well. So I think this way it gave us enough independence to also learn from our mistakes and be okay with it. You know, unless and until obviously it's like a very, very big thing that you are spending on. And, you know, experience that journey on your own rather than always, you know, trying to hold each other's hand.
But I have an opinion, like a different opinion on what you just said about making a mistake,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Imagine a situation where the women are not involved at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Working or not working,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
and by default, the husband takes all the decisions.
Yeah.
Mistakes can happen there as well.
Correct.
And I know families where, you know, after they have reached that age of 55, 60, 65, when
Yeah.
you don't have a lot of those years left to make do and,
Yeah.
you know, like earn and like compensate for, you know, like the fact that you have not been able to accumulate enough.
Yeah.
If the equation in that family is such that most of the decisions were being taken by the man,
Yeah.
it starts affecting the marital relationship
Yeah.
at that age.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
because then the wife feels that you had taken everything,
Yeah.
you were not, I mean, somewhere, even if she's not saying that out loud,
Correct, correct.
somewhere in her mind she feels that, you know, you have not taken the right decision. That's why we have landed up in this situation.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in our 30s, we
Yeah.
are very optimistic
Correct.
that things
Correct.
will work out. And I'm talking about even families where the wives are not working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They are very optimistic. कि हाँ
Yeah.
हो जाएगा, अब
Yeah.
हो जाएगा, हो जाएगा. And that's a natural human tendency.
Correct, correct.
But once you're above 60,
Yeah.
you kind of start losing that hope.
Yeah.
And if by then you've not been able to, you know, like, you know, have enough,
Yeah.
then it can backfire as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that risk and that burden and that pressure, a
Yeah.
lot of men are going through. And you know, like, Rupa, you know, I write on LinkedIn, you know, like,
Yeah.
that's something I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And on some of my posts,
Yeah.
I had the men of our age
Yeah.
commenting
Yeah.
that, you know, I am very keen on my wife taking the onus and,
Yeah.
you know, learning to invest and doing her own
Yeah.
thing, because
Yeah.
I'm really worried
Yeah.
about what if I am making the mistakes. And I was so, you know, like, it was actually, my perception was also that the men are not letting women do it.
Yeah.
But when I saw those comments, I realized that, you know, like, women also need to step up and
Yeah,
take those
yeah.
decisions and, you know, like, make mistakes early on.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, land up in a situation where
Exactly.
like there's no going back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I agree with you, and actually that's what I meant. So I did not mean to say that men are forcing this because they feel that women are making this mistake, and it's actually good to know that, you know, like, so many men actually feel that
Yeah.
way. I meant more to say that, you know, that is holding some of the women back themselves, right? Because I think what happens is that because historically or predominantly it's been something that men have been doing. So it comes with that package that, okay, yes, they may make a mistake, they might not make a mistake, but they are the ones who are driving this, right? Because now women have also started getting involved. And I think, like what I've seen, at least in my circle, is that because most of the women are working now, even if they are not working, I think because there is just so much awareness. Given the field in which I am, I see that, like financial education in itself is becoming much simpler. There are so many videos you can watch on YouTube just to understand the basics and all of that, that women want to get involved and probably have some kind of an opinion also. But when it comes to final decision making, a lot of it is left on the men, right? Because somewhere I think it's more to do with women than men. That what if I make a mistake and then it'll come back to me, right? While men are supposed to be playing that role already, right? But like I said, I think given how, like for example, me and my husband have done it, right? Like there are certain things we take, decisions together. There are certain things which I do better, I'm giving him advice and he is actioning on it. There are certain things where I did not have like enough knowledge, so he helped me. But then there are also aspects where we are managing some of our finances independently. And like to your point, making mistakes early, right? So that we know that we don't have to do this again. So I think I agree, but I do feel that it could be, like it is one of the things that holds women back themselves.
So one more thing that I've heard, and I kind of sometimes agree to it as well, that some women say that the gender roles are still not equal in our society, right? Women have so much more to do, like especially for working women, like when they go back home, they have to look after the kid, they have to take those decisions कि खाने में क्या बनेगा, kitchen में राशन है या नहीं है, calling their families back home, thinking about work the next day. So I read this, I'd come across this strip of cartoon, which said that women are always playing that management role, and are also playing the role of an executioner in a lot of domains, right? So when we come to a professional life, we know that there's a management and then there are doers, right? And if it's the same, you can't really manage so well, because the management needs to think more, do less. But when we come to our domestic ecosystem, a lot of women say, and I believe that it's a reality, that these roles are not similar, right? Women have to play both these roles of management and doers, and because of that, taking part in personal finance is just one more work, and they don't want to spend that weekend sitting on that Excel sheet, looking at the numbers, getting out of their comfort zone to learn something new. And I believe that both you and Ritesh are in extremely demanding jobs. You have a child, you live in a nuclear setup in a city like Bombay. First of all, what's your take on this argument? And secondly, how do you manage it in your ecosystem?
I think firstly, I think it's very fair, and I think all of us go through it, and I myself sometimes feel extremely stretched, like a job is extremely demanding. Then more often than not, and no matter again like how much we say, but especially when it comes to parenting and when the child is younger, mother's role invariably is a lot more, because of whatever, like biological needs or whatever it is, right? So I think वो तो होता ही है. So I absolutely don't deny that. But I think, and I myself have gone through that phase when I'm like, Saturday, Sunday, फिर से laptop नहीं खोल रही हूँ, like just to do this, I'm not doing it. I think what has worked for us is one that, and not just in this but also in other aspects, is that when the other person is feeling too stretched, then we try to compensate for it. So for example, if I have a very heavy quarter, because in work also you have like highs and lows, right? So if one has a very heavy quarter, or like a very very stressful time is going on, then I would, or like Ritesh would, take on that responsibility and say that okay, for this quarter you don't do it, I will do it, right? So I think that
And
is
then
one.
you come back together in the next quarter maybe
Correct.
and sit back.
And sit back. And then whenever there are leaner times, like for example, for December, like for me is slightly leaner, then I will take that time to, catch up and, probably see, like if, let's say if I had to make an investment and I've not done it still, so I would do that and all of those things, right? So we try and balance out for each other because otherwise it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, but then what you're saying is that the initiative has to come in.
Correct.
Because I mean, like for example, if I just resort to this that I'm not getting time and it's so stretched for me and I'm not going to do it now, and then I don't do it even after a few months, then what I feel is over the years the lack of awareness compounds in itself.
Agree.
And then the lack of awareness is so much that then you're like, yaar, abhi mutual fund hota kya, yahi nahi pata, to abhi how do I get into this space? And abhi to I am like left far behind. These guys are talking about crypto. I don't even understand what's mutual funds. So like you just feel like an outcast, right?
No, agree.
So the takeaway from this, Rupa, is that this is a given that this situation persists in the society. I think again it's a conversation that probably husbands and wives need to have between themselves of how do they really let each other get involved in these decisions and also play their individual roles depending on their individual commitments. But I think again the onus of initiative comes from the women. They need to step up and say that ki nahi, I want to understand this, answer these questions, have those maybe once a quarter kind of sit down in the house and discuss it with themselves.
Correct. And it comes one from like understanding that it's a priority, right? And you have to be a part of it, right? So whenever like 3 महीने में एक दिन तो आप निकाल सकते हो, like that much you can do because it's such a big priority for your family. The other thing also is that your like family also or your husband also encouraging you. So I'm sure you would have noticed that whenever we try and like set up some time with you also, like I don't think it has ever happened that Pritesh has done a call without me.
No, never.
Right? It is always when both of us are free and we can discuss it, only then do we do it. So I think like balancing it out for each other, and you're right, like 100% that initiative needs to come. And you need to understand that one, you have a very, very important role to play. And secondly, it's a priority for your family for which you have to take out time. जैसे आप बाकी चीजों के लिए time निकालते हो.
On that note, I think the ecosystem also needs to be very aware that, like both of you are part of it. So for example, one of the things that I've told my team is that every time, you're asking for time, you can't just say, hi Ritesh, are you available? Like as something as small. And we've made mistakes. I would not say that we've been doing this in 100% of the cases unintentionally, but there have been instances where we've done it, but we've learned and we've realized that it should always be hi Ritesh and Rupa, Rupa and Ritesh, and we ensure that we like ask both of you even in an email. So I think it also comes from us that we recognize the role both partners play, irrespective of who came to us and who took that leap. And in a lot of conversations that I have with my men clients, like I deliberately ask them that will your wife join, and in a lot of cases they say that no, she won't join, and of course I don't push, every ecosystem is different, but at least I make it a point to ask to like at least play my part in trying and involving the key members in the household.
Absolutely.
Right? So Rupa, tell me, like at your workplace, you mentioned that like it's become simpler, the awareness has become simpler and there are so many more women who are working, and you work at an organization where I'm sure the diversity is so much more. Right? Have you noticed any change in the way women are thinking about their personal finances? And do you think that there's still a long way to go? What kind of things are holding them back besides what we have already discussed?
No, absolutely. I think I think just in terms of wanting to be involved, and I've seen it over a couple of years now, and I think it also has to do with life stages, right? Because when you're younger, not married, like then you're like, theek hai, kya farak padta hai kind of thing, right? But when you have responsibilities, you have a child, you want to plan long term, right? So I think wo bhi ek factor hai, but I've started seeing that women do want to get more involved, at least want to be aware what's happening, whether working or not working, right? So of course I see it in my organization, but I also see it like among friends who are not working, for example, right? So I think That is there. But like I was telling you, I think it is that, I think the long way to go is being able to take some of those decisions independently and not worry about the consequences. I think वहाँ पे मेरे को लगता है कि, and like you said, right, like I think men से भी mistakes होती हैं of course, but that is the role. But here, because you are getting involved and you are taking a lot of initiatives, that I like, whoever I talk to, I feel that, yeah, you know, we give them inputs, we tell them this, we tell them that, but eventually the husband is
procrastinated for fear of
exactly
the unknown. Like, I don't know what will happen. Markets I don't understand markets, so I don't know eventually where we'll land up.
Exactly.
And this is despite the fact that there are, you know, like, I mean, people have access to professionals. And one of the problems that the industry faces is that while there are so many professionals available, a very large number of professionals are also perceived as people who don't really tell you the right things to do, right? And I've heard in a lot of cases that, you know, people don't get that faith and that confidence that, you know, ये जो बता रहा है मुझे करना चाहिए कि नहीं करना चाहिए. So while they go till there, they come back and not do things, right? And completely fair, because there's a humongous amount of mis-selling that happens in our country. So do you, in your workplace or in your friend circle or in your family, play a role where you kind of encourage, you know, your friends, men or women, to, you know, like, take decisions or, you know, think about investing, compounding? Because I've also come across people of our age who have still not, like, really started thinking long term. And so do you have these conversations with friends about money? And do, like, people ask you कि यार कितना net worth होना चाहिए? You know, like, I mean, like, it used to be a very taboo conversation.
Yes.
It still is.
Correct.
So, you know, do you play any role there?
We do actually, and it's good that it's slightly starting to get better. So, like, so many times we have said that, you know, like refer to experts. You know, because many times conversations come up that, you know, saving nahi ho pa rahi hai, salary nahi बढ़ रही है, ये हो गया, वो हो गया, kind of thing. And then, you know, we always say that, you know, like, we have a financial planner who helped us understand that, you know, this is how goal-based investing is done. And obviously, we don't do this day in and day out, right? Like, unless and until you're really passionate about it. I don't think we have enough knowledge to be able to at least put a structure in place, take some of those decisions. And I'm not saying that, like, follow blindly. Like, of course, like, we have discussions with you, right? Why we should do this, not do something like that. But still, we rely on your knowledge, because this is something that you are doing day in and day out. So I think we have those conversations. We have encouraged a lot of folks to, you know, refer to experts. Like, we sometimes also, you know, compare it with, you know, like, doctors, for example, right?
Absolutely.
It is the same thing. Like, either you're doing your own medication because you feel कि हाँ ये तो हो जाएगा, but or you go to an expert and ask them that, okay, these are my symptoms, what do I do?
Correct.
So I think,
so, but I think in this domain, I think more than knowledge, I've also come across people who just don't have time.
That's true.
Knowledge can be acquired and you can research, and
Correct.
but then jobs are so demanding if you don't have time.
Correct.
I mean, just today I was talking to a senior alum of ours, and he was saying that, look, it's been a year since I've been trying to take some decisions, and I have not been, and now that I'm in March 25 and I've been trying to do this since April, I've not been able to do it. And I think that is proof enough for me to realize that I should just go to somebody to help me, because I clearly don't have the time to process this.
True.
And he's somebody who comes from a finance background. He can very well manage his portfolio and take those decisions, but he was like, I just don't, if more than 12 months my money can just sit in the bank, it's proof enough for me to just realize this, that you know, like, I need help and outsource some of this as a second ear and a second eye.
No, absolutely. And I also think, like, to your point on trust, right? I think that's where we also play a role of that word of mouth thing, right? Like, we have entrusted our money with somebody, why don't you also try them, right? And we've, like, for example, like, spoken about you to so many of our friends, right? And outside of MDI as well, right? Because we say that, you know, like, we trust this person, why don't you also? So I think that trust also comes because I think the biggest source of trust is your friends and family, right?
Absolutely.
And that has been the case for so many years,
Yeah.
right? So when you recommend or when you encourage
Yeah.
them, I think you're playing a very important role there.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. I agree that like most of our growth comes from referrals, and
Yeah.
because it's a referral, that there is some amount of trust inbuilt.
Yes.
But I also always tell people I'm talking to that no matter what I say today,
Yeah.
you cannot trust me. And I think the action
Yeah.
stems from a leap of faith and not so much from trust.
True.
Right?
True.
So
True.
I remember those conversations which I had with you and Ritesh early on, and I and Ritesh have been in the same section in college, right?
Yeah.
Yet the conversation was so professional.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
And
I
even
remember.
till date,
Yeah.
like outside of our, when we talk about money, it's a very professional conversation.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And there was no such default trust, barring the fact that okay, you know me, we have been together, so I'm
Yes.
no random stranger to you.
Yes.
But there was a leap of faith that
Yes.
you had to still take, right?
Absolutely.
So I think what we are missing is the leap of faith. You need to start somewhere, maybe start small,
Yeah.
maybe try it out,
Yeah.
maybe try and understand whether you find those vibes,
Yeah.
and you find that comfort, and
Yeah.
you find that authenticity,
Yeah.
and then maybe take like bigger decisions with your money.
100%. No, I absolutely agree. I think it's about just starting and seeing, right? And
Yeah.
experimenting, whether it's working for you, not working for you. Again, I think going back to the doctor example, right? Like there are some doctors with whom you can feel that, okay, like
Absolutely.
they understand me, they get my symptoms. And with some doctors, you just feel that, okay, this is not working out, right? So I agree, like it has to be a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rupa, in one word, if you have to tell women in your network who have not, kind of gotten involved to the extent that they should have been, what would that be? Like maybe 5-6 words, if not one word.
Oh wow, okay. This is a tough one, but I would just say that, feel confident and just do it,
Yeah.
and just probably extending it a little bit, that don't worry about, what is
Yeah.
right, what is wrong. I think
Better to
just
do mistakes now than 10 years later.
yeah, and just make sure that, like you said, take the initiative and just do it, and then rest will fall in place probably.
All right.
Yeah.
So Rupa, with that, we'll sign off, and thank you so much for taking out time on a weekday to sit with us and discuss on a topic which is very close to me.
Yeah,
But I am hoping that it is equally, you understand the importance.
Yes.
And I also hope that you could be some form of a role model for a lot of other working women out there, and they could take some bits and some tips on how they can get started. So thank you for watching, and if you think that these conversations make sense to you, do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and do reach out to us in terms of anything else that you want to know, and we would love to do sessions on that and help you out with answering questions that are on your mind.